Law&Crime Channel Network. I'm your host, Brian Buckmire. I want to welcome now to the panel Allura Nanos and Wendy Patrick, who are with us via Skype. Good afternoon, ladies. How you doing?
Good afternoon.
Hi, Ron.
Thank you.
Now, yesterday, Attorney General Barr testified in front of Congress about his comments that he made about the Mueller report. Some believing that he misled the public, some believing that he mischaracterized Mueller's conclusion. Now we have to be able to put his feet to the fire and see what truly happened. Let's take a look at that video.
The Barr hearing was at times contentious as Senate Democrats peppered the Attorney General with questions about a report issued by Robert Mueller. Its purpose to determine whether Russian agents interfered with the 2016 election.
A president essentially tries to change the lawyer's account in order to prevent further criticism of himself.
Well, that's not a crime.
Senator Dianne Feinstein pushed Barr on whether President Trump's instructions to former White House counsel Don McGahn to lie about Trump's attempts to get rid of Mueller constituted obstruction of justice.
So you can, in this situation, instruct someone to lie?
No, it has to be, well, to be obstruction of justice, the lie has to be tied to impairing the evidence in a particular proceeding.
Former federal prosecutor and law and crime trial analyst Gene Rossi says Barr acted like President Trump's defense counsel.
He is the people's lawyer. He is not the president's lawyer. I was a supporter of Bill Barr when he was nominated, but not anymore. I don't trust anything he says, frankly.
Republicans focused on the reports, finding that there was not an underlying conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia. Their argument? Trump could not logically obstruct a probe into a conspiracy that never occurred.
Was there an underlying crime here?
No.
Also argued was a letter from Mueller to Barr, which criticized some of Barr's initial summary of Mueller's report. Mueller says Barr did not fully capture the context, nature, and substance of this office's work and conclusions.
I received a letter from Bob, the letter that's just been put into the record. And I called Bob and said, you know, what's the issue here? And I asked him if he was suggesting that the March 24th letter was inaccurate. And he said no, but that the press reporting had been inaccurate.
Barr is scheduled to testify again on Thursday. This is Rachel Stockman for the Law and Crime Network.
So there it is, Rachel Stockman covering the Attorney General Barr's case. And you've heard him giving certain interpretations of Robert Mueller and also admitting to the fact that he did have a conversation with him after the press release. Wendy, what do you make of the comments that come from the Attorney General, who's supposed to be the attorney for the people and not that of the president?
Well, I'll tell you what, I thought that he held his own during that hearing, and it was obviously very contentious, the Barr brawl that many people expected that it would be. Part of what made that hearing interesting to us trial lawyers is the fact that the senators that were not themselves skilled litigators were unable to elicit the answers they wanted. And by asking the questions the way they did, sure enough, he came across, at least in some circumstances, as defensive, which leads to a lot of the criticism you're hearing today about who do you represent, the people or the president. But part of the reason that he is skipping the next hearing is because when you do bring in trained and skilled litigators to ask these types of questions, they probably would have been able to elicit more of the answers they needed. And this is all ironic because you remember Barr wanted to testify. He didn't just agree. He basically offered his services and voluntarily came in. So now that the criticism is piling on about what kind of testimony he gave and did it look biased, now we're going to see what's going to happen when and if he actually is held in contempt.
Okay, and speaking of contempt, Allura, you have some actual new information about that. What can you bring to us?
So Brian, news is breaking right now that various members of Congress have told the press that they are gearing up to hold Bill Barr in contempt of Congress for not complying with the subpoena to come testify today. So what we're seeing is a number of wrongdoings or potential wrongdoings that are out there. We have Barr potentially mischaracterizing the Mueller report, which is kind of its own bag of wrongdoing. Then we have Barr giving answers to Congress under oath where he was asked whether his version of the report differs from Mueller's. And he said, no, Mueller and I, he denied that they reached different conclusions. So there was some speculation yesterday that there may be perjury involved. And now we're hearing that he's refusing to even comply with the subpoena. And we're hearing that people in Congress are specifically saying that they're going to hold him in contempt of Congress.
Yeah.
So from at least one perspective, this is going from bad to worse.
Exactly. And for a lot of us, the greatness of 2019 is that when you make public announcements, all of this is on video. We can see it. We can rewind the video. We can see what comments he made, and compare them to what we know. And let's listen to some of those comments that he made in the past. So as we look and listen to that public appearance, we have to kind of think, what information was given to the people? What information did the Attorney General Barr know? And is he having the intent to truly mislead people and mischaracterize what Robert Mueller had put in his report? That's going to be a question that Congress is going to have to ask, both about his knowledge when he made that statement, and then subsequently when Robert Mueller sent him a letter telling him that he did mischaracterize certain information, and then when he testified in Congress. It's going to be a great topic and issue to follow, but we're going to switch gears a little and now talk about another great thing that we have on for today, and that is the school admission scandal. Now, we were talking during the break, when you have an investigation like that is so broad in scope, there are so many people that are sitting there and worrying, who's next? Wendy, can you talk more about that? I know you brought that up during the break.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that struck me about this case as it has continued to break with parents continuing to be named is the breadth and scope. This was apparently an airtight investigation that took place over a number of months, swept in a lot of parents and children and others involved in the process. And one of the things that has to have lots of parents pretty nervous right about now that have had any contact with the mastermind who's already pled guilty is, am I next? And unlike so many investigations that leak, this one apparently didn't and took the nation by surprise when it broke. And it continues to break in terms of more indictments coming down the pike, more guilty pleas, more not guilty pleas, and more questions surrounding how extensive was actually this network that it threatens to take down some of the great institutions and some of the great players that heretofore were thought to be really completely with complete integrity. So it's one of those things that shows you that no one's above the law, and as we can tell, everybody's being treated equally.
Yeah, and during the morning, we heard from Jesse Weber talking about the interesting aspect of this, of being from a top-down approach. That sometimes we watch some of these cases unfold, and the prosecution would often go for the little fish and kind of work their way up. Well, Laura, now that we're seeing this kind of top-down approach, I mean, kind of what Wendy's saying, like anyone and everyone is up for grabs. If you had a text message, phone call, Twitter contact with this guy, like how broad can this get, Laura?
I think it can get extremely broad. And I think what Wendy said is exactly right, that people are probably really, feeling that anyone could be next. And let me just say this, I am someone who has worked in the college and graduate school admissions world for a long time, working with individual clients, not doing anything illegal and not really doing anything unethical. But I think that this case is going to have ripple effects that are really wide, because there are plenty of parents and kids that are maybe not working with this particular mastermind, but who are absolutely crossing the line in terms of ethics and legality when it comes to admission. Many people have asked me to write their kids' admissions essays. No one has ever asked me to take a test for them, and I've declined to do things like writing essays for students. But I think that there's a lot of money out there to be made by crossing the lines with these admissions choices. And this is just one person, this is just one ring, but it is by no means the only such person doing those services out there. And I think that there's a lot of people right now who are really wondering whether what they did maybe crossed the legal line.
Exactly. And that's sometimes the scariest thing, that we hear whispers about these college admission scandals and things that parents might ask and to do, and to Laura's point, ask to write an essay, for example. But now when a scandal has broken to this degree, it really sends ripple effects, as I think Wendy had mentioned, and a bit of fear as to, is what I did illegal, and can I go to jail for this? We'll have more to ask about that when we come back after this break.